Welcome back to Travis Teaches Guitar. Today I thought I'd take the opportunity while I'm in between rainstorms here to explain how it is that my own relationship with this, since I am the relationship counselor for guitar. I'll explain my own relationship and how this came to be. First of all, nobody in my family that I am aware of is either artistic or, not autistic, artistic or musical in any way. Meaning that I don't come by this in the blood or anything else. I don't even believe in that. It's just a matter of situations that you just happen to be in, and this just happens to be a good escape for some people, and combined with some other things, but it's certainly not something that you're born with. I dreamed about guitar when I was a kid, playing guitar. I grew up listening to 80s metal and stuff like that. My teens, that was all my teens was 80s metal, because that was when I was a teenager. So that is all I dreamed about, was being in the arenas and doing that. That was, it's a common dream. So I didn't have any way to get a guitar at that time, so I wrote songs, poetry, all kinds of stuff. That was my escape, listening to music, smoking a lot of weed, of course, and I don't condone that necessarily, but it just happens to be the case. I'll be honest with you. I never even put my hands on a guitar until I was probably about 16 or 17. I had a friend that I used to go visit every now and again, and he had a guitar, and that was the only time that I even saw a guitar. I was able to put my hands on a guitar, and he showed me my first chords, first songs, if you will, too, which is the power chords. That was the first chords I learned. He taught me which is down on the corner, and of course the always Iron Man, and Smoke on the Water and stuff like that. Anything that had a power chord, I quickly figured out I could take that everywhere on there. So that was all I knew until I didn't have a guitar. I had access to a guitar at one place I lived at for a short period of time, but I didn't know how to tune it or anything. But I knew that all I knew would just pick out and try to write songs to it. I didn't know how to tune it, but I knew enough for the most part to get this to where I could play power chords. So I knew at least that much of it. So I wouldn't say I didn't know how to tune it. I had a clue, but I wasn't very good at it, obviously, and I wasn't good at hitting an E. I just knew how to get the strings in tune. Well, I'll say that. So I remember listening to Halloween and stuff like that, and chasing one string in metal and stuff like that. And then I had some crazy idea to put like metal, like paperclip, and wrap them around the strings, so when it gave a twangy kind of distortion-ish type sound. That didn't last very long. This particular guitar, you could stick your hand literally in between the strings and the neck, so that wasn't good. It was so bad that even at my amateur level, I tried different ways to try to straighten out the neck, because I was certain that was what the problem was, which it was, but I never got it fixed, and I ended up just playing it as it was for a while. And then I moved into my own place, and then for some reason I decided I was going to get a bass, because I had a friend who played guitar, and he taught me palm muting. So even by this time, I still didn't know any open chords. I only knew power chords and stuff like that. So he taught me that stuff. I decided I'd get a bass instead of guitar. Maybe it'd be a little bit easier. I don't know. But I had access to it. So I rented one. It was an old PV bass and a Laney amp. had no idea really what to do, but I would figure out like Inagata Davida and all kinds of stuff. But again, it was the tuning thing, and if something happened, then if I knew it up here, then maybe one day it would be here, and then the other day it would be here. It was it was crazy. And we was partying a lot, so I ended up giving that bass back, and then I never touched a guitar for probably about another 6 months or a year, and then by this time I'm like 19 years old, 18-ish, 19, closer to 19, and I got a guitar from a pawn shop for like $40 some, which it was an okay guitar. Wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. It's just an acoustic guitar. And I had a friend that knew he was a big Led Zeppelin fan, but he was like, when he would show you stuff, he would show you like, of course, he would show me one time through and then play it because he just wanted to solo over the top of it, right? Which is a little bit of pressure, but I was able to do it. It was, so we got along pretty good, and I learned a lot from that dude. And then, I learned like my open chords and things like that. And then, for the longest time, C was the hard one for me. So I would try to cheat using a C at 9 because I knew every rose has its thorn. So I'd always try to use that C on other chords until I realized, I can't get away with that. So I had to buckle down and then learn how to play C the right way. After that, I went to Texas, and then I had access to a guitar for a few, but it wasn't constant access. It was just every now and again. Then I went into the Navy. I didn't really have time to play when I was in the Navy. I was on a ship, and we were always busy. But I managed to get an electric, a PV electric. It was a bright red one. Didn't have an amp for it. Didn't have anything. But what I used to do is just lean up against wood if I was ever at home, or I would, put a Sunny Delight bottle and focus it towards my ear like it was an acoustic. And it was, so crazy that I didn't have time, that literally sometimes I had to, if a string broke, I would have to thread it through the same tuning peg. So I got really good at tuning the guitar, really precise, because if it was not right, then when I tightened both strings up, it wouldn't be in tune. So then I would have to loosen it back up and just adjust it just slightly. So that was crazy. Then I got a 12 string, and that really kicked my ear in two. Because if you have a 12 string, that thing's out of tune. It's out of tune. You've got 12 strings on there to tune, not just 3 or 6. So that's a whole different level of that. Well, also when I was in the Navy, I had an apartment off the base with a couple of guitar players. One was an electric player, and then one was an acoustic player. The electric guy, could play all kinds of stuff, shredding way more than me, way more than anybody that I knew at the time. And then my other roommate he just had an acoustic, and he played songs like Pancho and Lefty, old country songs. We would have parties at night, when we had the chance, mind you. We would have parties and just have big blowouts. But one thing I noticed was that Matt, that was my friend's name, who played the electric, he could keep people's attention for maybe 5 minutes. Most of the potheads, of course, would be all stacked in his room listening to that, getting off on it. But this other guy, when he played songs, he had all the girls and even some dudes glued in a circle around him. And I saw that. That was life-changing, as far as my path, because I realized that, okay, there's differences between playing and playing. Playing and entertaining, I should say. That's what I realized. There's a difference in that. Because Matt, he was really good and flashy, but it wasn't very entertaining other than that, unless that's what he was looking for. But as far as holding the party and holding people's attention, my other friend, he had that. And I paid attention to that, and I remembered it. After I got out of the Navy, I ended up getting rid of the 12 string, getting another 6 string, and then for some reason I put this Holstein, which is a cow pattern, black and white cow pattern, over the top of it because I thought it looked cool. That's what kind of guitar I wanted. Wasn't thinking. I put that over the front of the guitar, went to Nashville. Not to play in Nashville, but just to be around people. Maybe even write some songs because I had wrote a number of songs before that while I was in the Navy on the guitar. So I was getting pretty decent at doing that. But mainly, I just wanted to be around people that were playing guitar and constantly, and I knew that that was the place. And at the time, I was really into country music. So I spent maybe about a year or so there. Then I ended up going back to Ohio because that's where I'm from. Got a job again. Got another guitar. Actually, I got a someone rescued a guitar and gave it to me because I knew how much I love guitars. Right? I always let that be known. It had a hole right here, but someone had covered it up with duct tape. So it was still usable everywhere else. It just didn't sound so good. And I practiced on that thing for a long time. Listening to CDs, just day in, day out, all day long. That's what all I was doing, was listening to women's country CDs. Pam Tillis, Shania Twain, Martina McBride, Joy White, Laurie White, you name it, Trisha Yearwood. Matraca Berg is, let me add, is always been my favorite. And but most people don't know her when I mention her. Sheryl Crow, another one. I used to listen and learn all those songs by ear because at that time there was no YouTube or anything of that nature. So that is what I did, is I learned all these songs like that. So I had a whole library of women's country songs that would later come into play. At the time, it was fun to me, and that's what I did. That's the music that I listened to, so that's what I learned all day long. So after a while, I was working. I finally got my first good guitar. It was a Fender, like this one, except for it wasn't cut away like this. It's the DG59, black, pretty. Loved it. Loved the sound of it. It was miles above any of the other guitars I'd had prior to that. So I was happy, and I hung on to that guitar for a very, very long time. I set up in my apartment, wrote songs on that guitar, ended up taking it to Florida with me. I thought that I see people playing out. I could do that. I didn't know how to start though. But a start was getting out of the small town where I was at, for sure. So I ended up going to a place called Ocala, Florida. But my destination was St. Augustine, Florida. But I ended up in Ocala by some crazy reasons, which ended up being okay. Because I used to go into a bar late at night, like on Tuesday nights, in this old Irish pub, and I used to see a guy in there playing. He had a great voice, but he was just sitting there playing an acoustic guitar. Again, had people captivated, and I would go in there often enough, and I would say, I can do that. I just have to work up the nerve, because I know my stage fright. So I just had to work up the nerve, I knew. But in the meantime, I would just go out to this park and practice every day, write songs and things like that. And someone ended up noticing me out there just by chance. And somehow, I don't even really remember how it happened, but I ended up getting invited to a gig where people were just showcasing kind of their songs and a few Christian songs. So it was at a Salvation Army, but it was a get-together. It was like a live event. And they asked me to do it, and sure, I did, and got up there and really liked that. I was nervous about it, but once I got up there and did it, I liked that. So I knew that, okay, yeah, I can do this. I just have to get over the stage fright thing. And so after that, a few days later, I was sitting out in that same park writing a song, and some guy come up with a newspaper, and he asked me what I was doing. He's curious. He was writing articles. I don't even know why. It just happened to be one of those things. But lo and behold, the next day, my picture was in the paper. Just a little piece, but it was enough that someone saw it. They contacted me for a gig at this restaurant, like a buffet restaurant of all places, in some back room, which was like a glass room, and for like 5 or 6 old ladies. So I just went in there, played, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 songs I did. Ones that I was comfortable playing, nervous as could possibly be. At the end, these ladies collected money from themselves. They was pleased. I was pleased. They was pleased. I walked out of there with like $35. So that was my legit first paying gig. and just by chance that I liked that. So at this time, I am I'm 100% in guitar from this point out. So it wasn't long after that then I began to be in bands and even started teaching a little. Um, and it just kept escalating from there. And I ended up being playing guitar. This is where the women's country music came into play because I ended up meeting a girl and she sang country music and she needed a guitar player to just do like a duo type of a thing, but really it's just solo her, but she needed a guitar player. And she had major contacts and stuff, and she already had places booked and places she was going. She was already on the up and up. So I just happened to get along with her. We started playing, and boom, I went from playing, the six old ladies to thousands of people on spotlights and getting sent to other states and stuff like that. It was crazy, but boyfriends and alcohol, not my alcohol consumption, but boyfriends mostly kind of put the kibosh on that. I went a few rounds with her for a while. We did a lot. Then we even tried me, her, and her boyfriend doing like a trio. And we did that for a while. We was in a band together for a while. I was in multiple other bands. So in this time, I'm also teaching, going to school. At that time, I went to a music theory school. And I was trying to find someone who would teach me fingerstyle guitar. But I couldn't find anyone who taught the style that I was after, which was the Chet Atkins, Travis Pickens style. I couldn't find anybody who would teach that. They would always want to teach. They wanted that type of finger style, and that's finger picking. To me, that's not finger style. It's not what. So it was hard to find somebody, and I went through a lot of teachers and a few schools trying to find this, and never did find that in that manner. So what I ended up doing is, by this time the internet come around, and I was looking up finger style that I could go around this area, because at this point I'm traveling 2 miles, or 2 miles, 2 hours, going back and forth to Tampa to see this group called the Tampa Bay Fingerstyle Guitar Guild, because I knew these were the only people playing that kind of music, and I knew that I needed to get in touch with them so I could learn. So I got lessons from them. I still talk to a couple of them even to this day. And from there, it just kept escalating. I went from playing with the girl to bands to being duo, solo, doing them in one town, doing them in 3 towns, doing a triangle that would take me all weekend to do, as well as teaching during those times. And after a while, it got out of hand, because I was doing, 3 gigs on Saturday, 3 gigs on Friday, a gig 11 in the mornings during the weekdays, from 11 till like 3:30, 4 o'clock. Turn around and do a happy hour gig. Then sometimes go do another gig after that. So you want to talk about your voice getting wore out, and that really wasn't something I've ever wanted to do, was singing. Not really. I liked doing that for myself, but then I soon realized, I don't really like that, and I was really just more interested in learning fingerstyle and improving myself in that way. So the singing kind of became a hindrance and made me really not like it. So I ended up getting out of it after quite a few years of doing that professionally like that. There were a couple years that I didn't play at all. It's not that I didn't have the interest. It's just I needed that much of a break, because it got ridiculous for a long time. Ridiculous. So, and it was in the ridiculous, which is good because it's a lot of money, but it's ridiculous in a way that you're not doing what you want to do. And that's when I realized that money is good, but when you're stuck doing something you don't want to do, even if you're playing guitar, because who can really complain about that? Sitting up on the stage acting like a fool, playing people's songs, and they're throwing money at you, filling up your guitar case full of money. That's a good thing, but it's draining after a while playing Brown Eyed Girl and Sweet Home Alabama over and over and over again. You try to give people something new. I try to break out fingerstyle pieces that I had worked on for months at a time, and they'll just be crickets afterwards. And that was always very discouraging because I realized, I'd heard a while back in a band, one of our drummers would say that once you get caught in that cover song, you know, market, you'll never get out of it. And we scoffed and laughed at him, but he wasn't far from the truth, because it is hard to get out of there because the money's good, your time is consumed, you don't have time to be practicing what you want, so you kind of go on a roller coaster with emotions. You're happy because you're making a lot of money and you're playing guitar, but you're not happy because you're not doing what you want to do. And that's a big difference, and that's something that I learned. What I realized, what I love to do is play fingerstyle guitar and teach it. Teach music. I love to see someone I teach continue on playing. I don't care whether they go big or they stay small, but when they come back and they're still playing, I am tickle pink every time one of my old students comes around and they show me that they're still playing, and they show me that how much they've improved, and they're thanking me for that. There's nothing more, satisfying than that, other than money, of course. But as far as outside of money, that is the best compliment that I think you can get. And so the moral of the story is, I made a video before about why you want to play guitar, and that is very important to me in the beginning, that you know why and you understand what that entails as you go forward in your guitar journey, because it's not what you think it is in the beginning. You're going to go through a lot of things with this, in a lot of places that you did not plan. Maybe some things you did plan, but there are a lot of things that happen. It's going to be completely random. You'll find yourself highs and lows everywhere in between. So it's not to be taken lightly, this music thing, and you really have to be in it and have to want to do it and love to do it, because you're going to be doing stuff that you probably don't want to do, stuck in bands that you don't want to be stuck in. Been there, done that. So here I am, not at the end of my journey, but definitely I'm at the good part of the journey, because I've been through all of that, and now I can just give people my experience, and hopefully they don't have to go through the same thing, or if they do go through the same thing, that's good, as long as they learn from it. But they always hear my voice in the back telling what I went through. So this is my journey with this, my relationship with this guitar. Until next time, keep practicing.